Good morning, everybody. You are listening to KZLX LP Maryville. It is 9 a.m., and you are listening to the first quarter with Gage Kaler, Cade Ricketts, and Michael Bosch. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Good. Ready to talk some sports. We've got a lot to cover today.
A lot to cover, indeed. We're going to talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament. Baseball starts Thursday, so we're going to bring that up, and cover some more free agency that we didn't get to cover last Wednesday. So we're going to start off with the NCAA tournament. So the Elite Eight was a pretty interesting one. Had three pretty interesting games. One not so good. So the first game we're going to highlight is FAU and Kansas State. I did not expect this tournament run out of FAU at all. I didn't even have them beating Memphis right out of the first round. Complete shock to me. Props to the Owls, giving it their all. Did not realize how good this team was at all.
Yeah, I don't think I realized how good Marquise Noel was, though.
He
might have lost, but still, between his Sweet 16 performance and his Elite 8 performance, I mean, golly. I mean, he's up there for tournament player of the tournament. I mean, that was just an impressive run for K-State. I don't know if I expected K-State to do that well. But then, you said, I had no idea that FAU, I know they'd won a lot of games coming into this. I know they were a good team in their respected conference, but I had Memphis beating them, too, in the first round. And it was one of those things I saw, too. It's like, what do you guys think? If Memphis could have beaten them, would Memphis have made it this far?
Probably. Because we watched, they played Houston in their conference championship, and Memphis just looked so good. Everyone's like, Memphis is beating Purdue and all this, and everyone just slept on FAU, but...
And you got to think back in that first-round matchup between Memphis and FAU. FAU won with 2 seconds left in that game. They hit a layup to take the lead. So I do think Memphis would get this far, but it's just unfortunate that the Owls had the last possession in that first-round matchup. But, yeah, who really stood out to me that game was Vladislav Golden, the 7-foot whatever he is, tall center for him. Just completely took over that game and was drawing fouls early in the first quarter, got K-State into some major foul trouble early on. And really, FAU kind of controlled that game from start to finish. Besides the occasional Marquise Noel takeover, it was really the Owls from beginning to end in that whole entire game.
Yeah, I honestly think K-State didn't even play that well. It was more Marquise Noel was kind of would just give them life. He'd give them spurts and they'd go on runs, but they wouldn't consistently do it. And FAU kind of just, I think, took advantage of that.
I mean, for me, looking at this game, the biggest difference in this one, and Kansas State was lucky to even be in this game if you just look at the rebounds. Kansas State had 16 rebounds to FAU's 41 rebounds.
Yeah, it was a complete mismatch on the boards, and I kind of figured K-State's size would come into effect at some point in time. But, against the Owls, I could not see it. Couldn't see it at all. And little did I know, FAU was apparently a top 4 team in the entire nation. So
yeah, definitely. I don't know many people thought that. So good run by them so far.
Yeah, and to me that game was over whenever Keontae Johnson fouled out.
Yeah.
Because there goes your second leading scorer, or actually your leading scorer on the season. And he was having a decent game, not a great game, but whenever a big name, like a leader like him goes out, you kind of just feel the momentum shift away completely from your team and go over to the other side. So props to FAU, great run by them, looking to become the lowest seed to ever make the national title game. This Friday, I believe. So the next game that was also that day was UConn and Gonzaga. This one was not so close. UConn pretty much controlled from beginning to end. 7-point game at halftime, ended up winning by 28. And yeah,
I didn't expect that at all. I mean, looking at that weekend's slate of games, I looked, oh man, UConn Gonzaga, what a game that's going to be. This is going to be, oh my gosh, I was so excited for it, especially coming off of their impressive win against UCLA the game before. And I was like, a lot of people thought UCLA could have beat UConn too. So I was like, yeah, I definitely thought Gonzaga was going to go in there and handle business. But kind of back on what you said to go up to Keontae Johnson, when Drew Timme early in the second, about 18 minutes down by, I think 9 or 10, pulled his fourth foul and they had to pull him. I'm like, right then I was like, oh, I kind of got a feeling that this game was over. I mean, their whole team runs through Drew Timme, and he got into so much foul trouble early they weren't really able to get in to run their offense. Drew Timme couldn't be as aggressive as he wanted to play. It just kind of changed the whole way Gonzaga worked when Drew Timme got into foul trouble.
Yeah, and really, you look back at their previous games, UConn's been dominating this tournament. Have won every single game by double digits, and when you look at this game, this has been their biggest blowout of the whole tournament, including the first round. Just shot lights out from three, and Gonzaga couldn't hit anything on the other end, so...
Yeah, going 2 for 20 on their three-pointers for Gonzaga.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad shooting game for Gonzaga, just from the field, from three, just everybody played bad. I mean, that being said, UConn only shot 41%, but when you shoot 35% from three and hit 11 threes compared to Gonzaga's 2, it's kind of going to be a ball game. And the fact that Gonzaga also shot 54% from the line doesn't help at all either. So, UConn's my big thing coming out of this Elite Eight was whoever wins that bracket, that right side of the bracket, whether that had been Texas or Miami or UConn or Gonzaga, was going to win this whole entire tournament. And to me now, this just looks like UConn's tournament to run.
Yeah, I think I had Alabama winning it going in, but, I mean, I felt that way. Since when Alabama lost, I was like, oh, well, there's your winner. It's going to be either Texas, UCLA, UConn, or Gonzaga. I was like, those are your teams that are going to win it. And right now, like you said, I mean, UConn has a clear path to win it. They are completely hitting their stride at the right time. This team is hitting on all cylinders. I mean, when you go out there, Gonzaga's a good basketball team. I mean, they just are. UCLA was a good basketball team, and Gonzaga beat UCLA, and then Gonzaga comes into this one. And I don't know if it was a hangover from that game, if it just took too much to win that one. You just didn't have anything left in the tank. But, I mean, UConn's looking like they could just steamroll whoever they play going forward.
Yeah, what's really also surprising that stands out for me from this Gonzaga game is Sonogo did not play well at all. Their best player, I mean, he didn't shoot well. He played fairly well, had 10, and 6, but he shot 3-11 from the field and just a complete and utter domination.
Yeah, he didn't shoot well, but he shut down Drew Timme.
He did.
And when you shut down Drew Timme, when I say I haven't seen anybody shut down Drew Timme, I don't know in how long. And Sonogo had Drew Timme's number. I mean, there was times where Drew Timme's trying to back him down and just couldn't do anything. He's trying to do these fadeaway shots from the almost fading back to the dang near the 3-point line. I mean, he had Drew Timme taking shots that he's not normally taking. Drew Timme couldn't get inside like he wanted to. And I mean, that just changed the whole aspect of this game for them. And I respect what Sonogo did that game.
Yep. So, moving on to the games that happened Sunday. I didn't get to watch much of this game. Creighton and San Diego State. So I still haven't seen the play. Was it a controversial call at the end that gave SDSU the win?
What was the call?
I believe it was a blocking foul on a shot.
Yeah, from behind. He drove into the lane. The Creighton guy kind of had him arm locked.
I thought it was a good call.
I think it's a good call. I mean, it's reminiscent to me of the Chiefs Super Bowl. It's like, oh my gosh, how could you make the call in this time? And it's like, but it was the right call. I mean,
it was. He went up to block him, and he used like his hand to put it on his hip for like leverage and jump up higher. So it was obviously a foul. But
it definitely was a foul. Just unfortunate for Creighton. They had a really good team, and I think just as FAU surprised me, San Diego State has surprised me just as much, honestly. I had no idea that they were going to come in here and dominate, especially a defensive team, not a great offensive team, but what they've been able to do in this tournament is make everyone play to their game. I mean, they've been able to change everyone's game plan where you have to play to San Diego State's game and their defense and their pace, and, I mean, you can make other teams do that like Creighton and Alabama. You're going to go far in the tournament.
Yeah, I saw Max, San Diego State, going early on. I didn't know anything about him, though, so Max, I saw him as far as them going was second round against third round against Alabama, and I did not see them getting past him at all. Great run by San Diego State. do you think they can win it all, though?
I think any of them could win it, to be honest. Just this year's so crazy, I feel like. Just every team's been playing. All these 4 teams have been playing really good in all their games.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Still surprising the teams that have made it. I think
Yeah.
I wouldn't. None of these teams I had in my Final Four bracket completely busted, but just it's exciting. If you look back at last year's Final Four, it was all blue bloods, and it was these like teams that have all won championships in the last 20 years, and it's just like this year there's some teams that have a chance. I mean, FAU. Imagine FAU winning it all. I mean, are you kidding me? Even if San Diego State wins it all, Miami hasn't won in a while.
Miami's never won one, I don't think.
Yeah.
The only team
I meant UConn.
Yeah, UConn's the only one.
They're the only one that's won it twice in the last like 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. So, bringing up Miami, defeated the second favorite in this year's tournament in Texas. Wild comeback in that game. Down 13 late. Jordan Miller sparked that run. Was perfect from the field, perfect from the line. Did not miss all day. I didn't know this Hurricanes team was this good. I did, in like the redo bracket that ESPN app does, I did take Miami over Houston. Didn't see them getting past Texas, though. But, again, proved me wrong. Just a wild year for this whole league. Isaiah Wong, though, I do like him a lot. Again, their best player didn't play too well, but when the big moments arose, he played so good. Was making plays all over the court, rebounded well. Only had 3 on the day, but he was tipping balls out to the perimeter. Hit a couple big shots down the stretch, and played defense really well on Travis Hunter, or not Travis Hunter, Tyrese Hunter.
Yeah, it was one of those games that caught me off guard. I'd kind of been watching it and off and on, and Texas kind of just had an arms length on them the whole way, kind of just holding them back. And it kind of looked like they were just going to kind of cruise to this one, keep a little bit of a lead. And then Miami kind of caught fire, like you said, late in the game, went on a little bit of a run. And then Texas they had no offense left. I don't know what Miami did defensively to change there, but it just shut Texas down offensively. They were not scoring like they were earlier in the game. They weren't able to keep that arm's length lead in front of them anymore. This game surprised me, honestly, almost as I didn't see Texas losing to Miami. These games have all been pretty surprising to me. A lot of good basketball being played by some teams I didn't expect it to be played by. Like you said, I didn't know Miami was going to be this good in this tournament. But, I mean, beating Texas, it's like you want to say UConn can just cruise to this, but I thought that UConn-Texas game would have been really close and competitive. And if Miami can beat Texas, I mean, I don't see why Miami couldn't go out there and if they play this good, beat UConn. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when Miami barely snuck past Drake, I was kind of just like, is this team legit? I mean, Drake's a good basketball team, but I mean, they won by 7, but that game was a lot closer than that Drake score shows. And then the next round, they throttle Indiana. The next round, they really don't keep it too close with Houston. It's like, man, this team might actually be something that can make a Final Four run. And little did we know, beat Texas. I think the big deal with Miami coming into this tournament was they're in a weaker conference in the ACC with only Virginia and Duke being ranked. And a lot of people discredited their season, so I guess a lot of people were sleeping on the Hurricanes. But,
Yeah, I think they were one of those teams coming into the tournament that no one had being that good, but I definitely had them in this. I mean, they're good enough. I mean, they can get streaky, and they're, like I said, same thing as UConn. They're hitting their stride at the right time, and that's all March is about. If you can get your team firing on all cylinders in March, and any team in March can be a dangerous team. You made it that far because you're usually pretty good. Especially any 6 seed, 7 seed, those teams that are coming out of your Power 5, usually conferences, when they catch fire, I mean, you just see it. I mean, San Diego State, Miami, I mean, just impressive.
So we're going to move on to the Final Four now. Make a couple of predictions because we know how well that's been going recently. Who is in your guys' championship?
I feel like I have to say UConn on the way UConn's been playing. And if UConn wins, I'll win the class bracket challenge, so I'll go with that. And San Diego State FAU. I don't really know necessarily who's gonna win, just because. What was their center's name?
Golden,
Yeah,
FAU
he
center.
was a real factor last game, and if he can be a real big factor in this game, I'd like to see FAU win. So I'd like to see FAU UConn and get the 9 seed to win.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. Like I said earlier, FAU's looking to become the lowest seed to ever make the title game. But I don't know. San Diego State's interior defense is so good. But with that being said, FAU showed last game that they can hang with the big dogs. So that's a tough pick.
It's a tough game, yeah, I know.
I lean more FAU too, just because all this momentum they have coming into this game. But at the same time, San Diego State's pretty much handled everybody pretty cleanly besides Creighton. But I do lean FAU in this game, surprisingly enough. And then like you said, Michael, UConn, I just don't see any way they lose with how hot they've been. So I tend to agree with your pick too of FAU and UConn.
I feel like when you get late in this tournament, defense is just so important. You got to be able to slow teams down. You got to be able to play your kind of game, and I don't know if there's a team left that can do that better than San Diego State. I just think defense is king late in these games, and FAU's offense has showed that they can score on some pretty good defenses. I mean, the win against Tennessee is the big one. I mean, that's a stellar defense in Tennessee, and they were able to beat them by 7, ran a competitive game, a really good game, fun to watch. But it's like you guys said, it's like I lean FAU in this one regardless of defense. It's just like
Because you want it to happen.
It's because I think you do want it to happen, but I'll play advocate here, and I'll go San Diego State.
Yeah, I didn't realize, looking at these stats, I didn't realize San Diego State is, it sounds bad, but 74th in the nation and block shots with 3.9 per game. But 74th in the nation out of 300 some odd teams is pretty high. So their interior defense is legit. But yeah, I think I just want to see the Owls to win.
Yeah, I think I'll pick San Diego State
for that unique storyline.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be cheering for FAU. Why wouldn't you? I mean, who wouldn't want to see a 9 seed make the championship?
Yeah. Besides, they knocked out my Cinderella in the first round, but that's the only reason why I would hold a grudge against them. So do you guys lean UConn all the way at this point?
Yeah, I think I do.
They're just the most balanced team in my eyes.
I definitely would be cheering for Miami because I think Miami versus FAU or Miami versus San Diego State would make a really interesting championship game. But I don't see how UConn, if they don't beat Miami, or if UConn does beat Miami, how they don't beat San Diego State or FAU.
This UConn team reminds me so much of that. I believe it was 2018 Villanova team where they just ran through everybody that was in their way. Faced Michigan in the title game, beat them by 14 or 20 or something like that, and really just dominated the whole tournament. Or you can even go back even closer with that 2021 Baylor team where they won every single game by double digits.
I just love that one of their closest games of the tournament, I don't know, it might be, I think their second closest game of the tournament was against Iona. So respect
UConn?
to Rick Pitino. Yeah, UConn.
Rick Pitino's a good coach. He knows what he's doing. Just a little controversial, but we'll stay away from that.
Yeah, right.
So we all in UConn heavily now. So yeah, there's our final predictions for the tournament, and we saw how those were going to win in the past. So let's just hope we didn't jinx everybody that we just brought up.
Yeah, at this point we might have probably did.
All right, moving on. The MLB starts Thursday. So do we want to make a few predictions on how the season is going to pan out?
Yeah, we could do like division leaders. Who we think's gonna win each division?
The usuals.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Why don't you start us off with this one, Michael? Let's start with the AL East.
AL East. So who is it? It's the Yankees.
That's Baltimore, Boston, the Yankees, Tampa, and Toronto.
I think I'm going to stay with the Yankees on this one. I'm trying to pull up all the teams, but the Yankees are just so good. Aaron Judge coming off that, they have good pitching. They have Stanton. Do they have Rizzo again?
Yeah, Rizzo's still
Yeah,
first
Rizzo.
base.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are just going to be the team that comes out of there. For me, I don't know about you, Cade.
It's hard not to lean the Yankees. They have so much star power, and I mean, they have a lot of young rookies that they're calling up to this year. I just think they're just talented. That starting rotation with, Hector Neris coming on. You still have Luis Severino, Garrett Cole, obviously. It's just like I think that starting rotation is so great.
Garrett Cole's been a little disappointing though, ever since the whole
Spider tack
thing. He's not been as good as he was.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to that. But it's just like, and also the competitiveness of this division. The Red Sox have not been great over the last couple of years. Baltimore is just Baltimore. Let's be honest. Tampa Bay Rays have had some really good runs in the past, but I don't think they're back to that team that they've been the last few years. Toronto's obviously, I think, their biggest contender here. But even I think Toronto took a step back last year. And if we're just going off of bats, I think they both have a lot of firepower on offense. But as far as pitching staffs go, I think the Yankees are quite a bit ahead of the Blue Jays. So yeah, in the American League East, I'm going to go with the Yankees as well.
Yeah, just being a casual baseball fan, I would say the Yankees too, just because I know they have the big names. But so does Boston. Do you think there's any chance Boston has a rebound year after their huge disappointment of last year?
No, they don't. They lost Xavier Bogaerts. They still have Trevor Story. Rafael Devers is great. I don't even know where Chris Sale is at right now. He's here one day, injured the next. He's kind of on the back end of his career.
I think he is hurt right now, honestly.
He made his return last year, and then I think got hurt.
He got hurt in his return, yes. But I don't see them being that dangerous of a team.
All right, so Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Clean sweep. Central Division, probably the weakest division in baseball right now. Home to your Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, that's kind of like a free division for whichever team. And
whichever team's above 500.
Yeah, this is a tough division to pick.
I think I'm going to lean towards the Twins or the Guardians. And who won it last year? The Guardians won
The Guardians won it last year.
Yeah, I like the Twins. The Twins have Buxton still. They got Michael A. Taylor. They got Joey Gallo, Carlos Correa, Christian Vasquez. So, I could see. That's like not that. It's a pretty solid team. But I think just being in the AL Central, that'll be enough to put them at 1 or 2.
Yeah, the Guardians had a lot of young talent step up last year for them. They're one of the youngest teams. I think they might be the youngest team in all of Major League Baseball, which is insane that a team that young went out there and went 92-70 last year. But the Twins did have a really good season too last year. I'm leaning the Guardians. I think that young talent continues to, go out there and develop and just continue to play so well. They finished third in the entire American League last year. I don't see the Guardians really taking a step back. They didn't lose anybody too important. You still have Shane Bieber. You still have Tristan McKenzie. Emmanuel Clase coming to shut it down out of the pen. And obviously, I think their best bat and Jose Ramirez. So I do like the Guardians to go ahead and win the Central again. And I think the two most competitive teams to contest them for that, for me personally, is definitely the Twins. But I wouldn't sleep on the White Sox either. The White Sox do have a really good team. Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson. Actually, they lost Jose Abreu. He plays for the Astros now. But you still have Tim Anderson. You have
Tim Anderson.
What's the left fielder? I can't think of his name. Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah. Oh, they also have Luis Robert.
Yeah.
Amazing.
They have Andrew Benintendi, too.
Yeah, they signed Benintendi in the offseason. But
Yasmani. And Dylan Cease was
Well,
amazing.
Jasmani
last
Grandal's
year.
kind of just fell off the edge of the
Dylan
roof.
Cease is really
Yeah,
good.
Dylan Cease is really good. So is Lance Lynn. I mean, and Lance Lynn looked electric for Team USA. He was honestly our best pitcher through the World Baseball Classic. So I do like Chicago, too. And I think Chicago and the Twins have very similar of where they're at. And I just think Cleveland, they're just young talent's going to propel them to the win.
I lean more toward Chicago
Yeah.
in my pick. So, now time for the West. Might be a clear runaway here with Houston, the LA Angels, Oakland, Seattle, and Texas. Again, being a casual, I just know how loaded Houston is.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm just going to start off with that.
That's like, they're like, if in the NBA, you're like, I think the Warriors will do pretty good this year. I mean, the Warriors actually aren't doing good this year. So I guess that's not really a good comparison, but I mean, the Astros, it's always like, you could pick the Astros to win, and it's a good pick.
It's a safe bet.
But besides the Astros, I'd like to see the Mariners do pretty good and finish second. And third, I don't really know. The Angels aren't too good.
I want Mike Trout to
I
get
wouldn't
a
sleep
ring.
on the Angels this year. They made some really good
I
offseason.
know,
I mean,
but-
bringing in Hunter Renfroe was a huge bring-in. They also...
You think they'll finish higher than the Mariners?
I think that battle for second place, I think, is honestly going to turn into a wild card battle down the stretch. And I think when you look at those two teams trying to, because I think the Astros are going to win this division. I think the Astros are just too entirely stacked. They have a great coach. This is the Astros division to lose, honestly. But I think that second place spot, and I really do think it's going to be that wild card race between the Angels and the Mariners, are both going to be in that. I think it's going to be closer than you think.
Yeah, I actually haven't even seen what the Angels have really brought in. So if you want to like talk about that, but I think if the Angels don't make the playoffs, do you think they lose Trout or Ohtani, one of them, or even both of them? Or do you think they're both stuck?
I think it's just that consistency of. I don't think Trout wants to leave. I think he likes playing for the Angels. I think he's one of those guys that really likes to have like that respect and be like, I played my whole career somewhere. He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to demand a trade regardless of how bad they've been, because they've been pretty bad in some of his years there. And I mean, it's hard to give up Shohei Ohtani. I mean, I think their team, once they get out from the Anthony Rendon contract, I think their money is going to be, because you guys they're paying Anthony Rendon one of like the top 5 highest paid players in all of Major League Baseball, which is absolutely absurd considering he hasn't barely played the last 2 seasons, and even when he does play anymore, it's very average. So once that Anthony Rendon contract, they get out from underneath that. I mean, they'll have enough money to bring back Shohei Ohtani, so I think they're going to just have both of them. I don't think there's going to be any movement from either one of them.
All right, so you guys are we all saying Houston
Yeah.
for that one? Okay. Moving on to the NL, we'll start with the East. That involves Atlanta, Miami, the Mets, Philadelphia, and Washington.
Just an absolutely stacked division.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I was going to say every team is pretty good. Are the Nationals going to be good?
No, Nationals and your Marlins
The Marlins are all right, but they're not.
should technically, I think, be your 4th and 5th teams if you just want to go off of rosters.
Yeah, the Braves are obviously super good. The Mets lose
They just never win.
Edwin Diaz for the year already, so that's like huge because he was just so consistent in giving them saves last year and closing games. And then the Phillies bring in Trey Turner after their crazy playoff run. So I think you could pick any 3 of these teams, and any 3 of these could win.
I personally think Philadelphia runs it back with adding Trey Turner and still having Bryce Harper.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's their division to lose.
last year, believe it or not, I mean, so the Braves won the division last year. The Mets came in second, and Philadelphia came in third.
Oh, I thought
Philadelphia got hot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
the Mets blew that division.
Yeah.
I thought they won it last year.
I'm pretty sure. This has them at second, and the,
Yeah,
the Braves
they
did.
had it clinched, and then
It
the
was close.
Braves
Yeah,
like,
it-
picked it up. like,
101
big time.
and 61 was their record last year, and the Mets record, I think, was also 101 and 61. They had the same exact record.
Tiebreakers went to
I think the tiebreaker went to
Atlanta.
Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. But that's just a tough one. I mean, Atlanta, too. I mean, they have Ronald Acuna back for a full year. He's looking sharp.
The Braves roster is just disgusting.
Yeah, but that starting rotation of the Mets is also just
Yeah.
super solid.
But Max
this year.
Fried and Spencer Strider are solid.
Yeah. I do like the bats of Atlanta a lot more. I mean, Ozzy Albies, they have
Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Acuna,
yep.
Michael Harris.
Yeah, Michael Harris has been pretty good too. I think I do. I'm gonna lean Atlanta to go ahead and win it again. I just don't think the Mets bats are quite there on the same level as the Braves are, and I think the Mets pitching is solid, but they always run into injury problems. And if I was a betting man, I think at some point either Verlander or Scherzer is going to get injured. It just seems like it's an inevitably that one of their two aces. They always have two aces, and one of them gets injured.
Yeah, they had DeGrom and always got hurt.
Yeah. And I mean, it's good you're getting away from that injury-prone player, I think, even though DeGrom, when he's healthy, is elite. But, yeah, I'll go Braves to win this one. And I think it's going to be a close one again. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Philly somehow can edge out the Mets for second place.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Braves, too.
All right. So I'm just I'm on the Philadelphia revenge tour train.
Sounds good.
Is where I'm at. Moving on to the NL Central: Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis.
The second worst division in baseball.
That's right, both Central, both Missouri teams.
I feel like this one's the Cardinals. You have, Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt on a team, and I mean the Brewers are supposed to be pretty good.
Brewers are always pretty decent, and Brewers are definitely their biggest competition in this division. The Cubs made a lot of interesting moves in the offseason to kind of went in and got a lot of veterans that haven't been great recently. Pittsburgh and the Reds are both just I don't think either one of them are going to be anything special. The Reds are not good, but neither is Pittsburgh. I think honestly you could say the Central is the worst, but I think Pittsburgh and the Cincinnati are maybe your two worst teams in all of baseball, right there with Detroit.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. This might be a little biased, but I think St. Louis runs away with that division, and I don't really think it's close. Replaced Molino with Contreras. I think that's an easy upgrade there. We have Brendan Donovan is just going to get better. Nolan Gorman could potentially see playing time at shortstop. Still got Tommy Edman at shortstop right now. And the only problem with St. Louis is our pitching rotation. And it's been a weakness for the past 2 or 3 years now. That would be my biggest concern, but I still don't see a way we lose this division unless it's just to Milwaukee and they get the bats rolling.
Yeah, I lean Milwaukee to win it this year. It was a close race last year. I'm pretty sure the Cardinals edged them out for the division last year.
We won it by 5 games.
Yeah, it was a close run, but I love the pitching of Milwaukee so much. Corbin Burns is just elite. So is Brandon Woodruff. Eric Lunar had a really good year last year as well. I just think top to bottom, their starting rotation's huge in baseball, and I think they have a really strong one. I think their bats are still pretty good too with Willie Adams. I wouldn't sleep on. I think good night. Christian Yelich could have a decent year. He's kind of fallen off the last 4 or 5 years, not been, or maybe 2 or 3 years more or less, but I still do like Yelich. And I mean, Devin Williams out of the bullpen is just shut down for Milwaukee. So I think they'll, in somewhat of an upset, I think they, just to be different here, I'll go with Milwaukee.
I'm going STL.
All right. Moving on to the West in the final division. That is Arizona, Colorado, the Dodgers, San Diego, and San Francisco. Absolutely loaded. Michael, you going to start off with this one?
Yeah. This one's hard because Dodgers are always... it's definitely between the Dodgers and Padres for me. And the Padres, it's going to be about when does Tatis come back? Because is he going to come back halfway through the year?
It's a massive suspension. I don't even know.
It started last year.
He's supposed to be back pretty soon this year.
Yeah, so I think...
It's pretty soon. He was already hitting in spring training.
I mean,
was he?
Because this team is ridiculous. 'Cause you have Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove as your 2 pitchers, and you have Hader as your closer. And Austin
Manny
Nola.
Machado.
You have Austin Nola, Cronenworth, Ha-Seong Kim, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Juan Soto, Trent Grisham, Tatis, and Matt Carpenter.
Yeah.
Then you have Nelson Cruz, who's older, but that's like power.
Yeah, bringing in Nelson
For a
Cruz to be a
pinch hitter.
designated hitter.
Yeah.
Now we're the National League.
Like if that team is healthy throughout the year, oh my goodness, that team is very good. But then there's the Dodgers, so I don't know.
Kind of just like cancels each other out, honestly. But
Sadly, one of these teams will have to be in the wild card, is what it's going to come down to.
get rid of it, MLB. Get rid of that rule.
I'm going to lean toward the Padres. That's where I'm going to go with it.
I'm right there with you. I just think that Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, they just have so many bats, and the pitching rotation is good enough to keep them in games, and their bats can win them for you. I like the Padres to win this one too. I think it's going to be close, obviously, with the Dodgers, but I do think the Padres will finally get a win in the division. For been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while for the Padres, and I'm going to lean that way too. But you can't ever count out the Giants either. They had a great season last year. I think they might have hit 100 wins. If not, they were close. Unless that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Last year they went 81 and 81.
Okay, never mind then. Scratch that take. But still, it's still the Giants. They're always in it for a while. Wouldn't be surprised if they are runners-up in that division, and either the Padres or the Dodgers just absolutely have tanks of a season. But I do lean San Diego too. So there we go. Those are our division winners. Not much parity there, but we had a couple different takes. So since we didn't get to wrap it up last week, we're going to move back to NFL free agency since it's basically over at this point. Still a couple decent names out there. OBJ,
Adrian
Amos. OBJ is a huge name, but the production value isn't completely there.
Well, yeah, he's been so injured, you just don't know what you're getting.
What you're going to get. We're going to do a winners-losers segment real quick, just to kind of quickly wrap up free agency. Do we want to start with winners, or do we want to start with losers?
Let's start with.
We can go with losers.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't have a losers, technically, but I mean, I can just say I kind of went on it last week about the Giants, so I'll save it. But if you two got a loser, you guys want to talk about?
I'll let you start, Kate, if you want to.
Picking a loser is always just based off of really just contracts I feel like you've given out, or maybe you feel like they didn't do enough or they did do enough. I think I'll go with Denver here just for the pure fact they did spend a ton of money in the offseason, but I just don't know. I mean, they addressed the offensive line, but I don't think the talent they got is worth the value they were paying for most. I mean, honestly, it's almost with every single one of those. I mean, Mike McGlinchey is just, I don't know if he's worth $87 million. They're paying him almost, 17 to $18 million a year for a right tackle. It's just, and Ben Powers coming over from Baltimore is decent too, but they're handing him another massive contract.
I think Ben Powers was a scheme fit with Baltimore. He's a very good run blocker.
Yeah.
I don't know the direction that Denver's wanting to go, whether they want to be a pass-heavy team or not. The way Russ looked last year, I don't think you can be a pass-heavy team. But yeah, I think you're right on. I think you hit the nail on the top of the head with that one, with the Ben Powers take. I think he is very scheme-heavy. He's a very scheme-heavy guard. Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on how much do you trust Sean Payton to turn things around there in Denver in 1 year. And I just think that team has so many holes that going out and signing a bunch of offensive linemen, I just don't know if that's going to answer all their questions and problems.
Yeah, and your take didn't even bring you to the fact that they signed Sean Payton to that contract. They
Yeah.
traded away
a
first-round pick to get a coach.
Yeah, they traded away Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins during the season to get a first-round pick, then turned around and traded that first-round pick to get Sean Payton because we trade for coaches now in the NFL.
It's just wild. Yeah, I don't. Zach Allen is another contract I didn't completely understand from the Broncos. Showed a lot of potential on Arizona, but I'm always one of those people that is super hesitant to sign a guy after one breakout season when he's been in the league for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
It's always a scary situation in that. And I'm right there with you in the fact that Denver won 5 games last year, but you have to make moves if you have a quarterback on a huge contract, so you aren't wasting those years of that contract.
And they always say, I mean, one of those things, I mean, you have a serviceable offensive line, but when you have a high-paid quarterback, you're hoping that high-paid quarterback has enough pocket presence so you don't have to spend as much on an offensive line. I always say, like, when you get a rookie quarterback, you pay for offensive linemen so you can, you know what I mean, be protected. But once you get settled into the league, usually you can start not having to spend as much on. I mean, when you have a guy like Russell Wilson, who's supposed to be a mobile quarterback who can sense pressure, who can get out of the pocket, and you're going to spending all. I mean, they needed offensive linemen. You're spending all your money on your offensive linemen. I just maybe they're just thinking that Russell Wilson's lost that pocket presence or that awareness or the ability to scramble out of the pocket as much, so they weren't just trying to keep him protected more. But I don't know. I think it's a lot of money when you're paying Russell Wilson as much as you're paying him, and then you go out and pay a bunch of offensive linemen. It leaves the defense very vulnerable, leaves a lot of holes on their defense, especially when they're losing Draymond Jones.
Cut Ronald Darby.
Yeah.
Lost Deshaun Williams. So there's 2 defensive tackles that you're losing, along with a starting secondary player. Yeah, I don't know. Denver's, and it's Mike McGlinchey also came from a run-heavy offense too. So I don't know. Maybe they're wanting to make Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine workhorses. No idea.
They also brought in Tony Jones from Seattle, who had actually gotten some reps there in Seattle just because of how injury-prone Seattle's running backs have been. And, yeah, they completely are changing the running back room, but they still have, Williams coming back off of injury. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what that running back looks like. And, I mean, when you're paying for a guy like we said how run-heavy Ben Powers is, maybe they're going to try to run the ball more than they did last year. Maybe that's what they're thinking is the goal of attack, but it's like, back to what I said, when you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson, it's not to run the ball.
Yeah, maybe if it was Russ of old, sure.
Yeah.
But nowadays, he's not the same mobile quarterback that he used to be. So my biggest loser this offseason is the Baltimore Ravens. And it's not for moves they did make, it's for moves they didn't make. The only move that I can find that they have done, aside from re-signing players, is Nelson Aguilar. You get a number 3 or number 4 receiver, and you ruin your relationship. This is why they're my huge losers. You ruin your relationship with Lamar Jackson, who is now requesting a trade. How often, playoff factor aside, do you run across a guy that immediately gives you automatic 10 wins?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen. Completely fumbled that bag with Lamar, and I don't even know how they're supposed to recover from the contract disputes. Aside from even that, you lose a starting safety in Chuck Clark, but you're going to replace him with Kyle Hamilton. So, I mean, that's a wash there.
Yep.
You lose Calais Campbell, who's old, but at the same time, you didn't sign a replacement. You lose Ben Powers, who we just talked about, and you lose Josh Oliver, who was your primary blocking tight end. And it hasn't been announced yet, but Lamar is more than likely gone. Don't see any way they bounce back from that.
I mean, love Lamar, how he plays. He took it to the playoffs consistently. He puts you in position to win your division consistently. Franchise quarterbacks don't just grow on trees, and to mess up a relationship that fastly is just not ideal. And if they don't have Lamar, their quarterback situation is going to be interesting next year.
Their starting quarterback right now is Tyler Huntley.
It's going to be Tyler Huntley.
Pro Bowler Tyler.
True. I shouldn't speak too harsh on Tyler Huntley winning Pro Bowls. But like you said, the things they didn't do. They still have Marcus Peters, who's a free agent, played on the team last year. Justin Houston, who was one of their leading in sacks last year on their team. Yes, he's 34, but he had a really good season last year for him. Kyle Fuller. So Kyle Fuller and Marcus Peters, both there, gone. Jawan James, their starting tackle, gone. I just don't know.
They're about to have the greatest
their
draft.
their
of all
direction.
time.
I know, right?
Yeah.
They bring back Trayvon Mullen, which I think is a good. I like him. That's a solid guy to bring
He's not
back.
a star quality.
He's not a
though.
star though, and when you lose Marcus Peters and Kyle Fuller, you have to do more than just bring back Mullen.
And if you're Baltimore, you don't get Lamar back, you almost have to think about trading up into the draft.
Yeah,
Sure, it resets your salary cap situation because you aren't paying a quarterback, but you don't know what this guy's going to be. You have no idea. It's just it bothers me so much how they handled this Lamar Jackson situation.
yeah, and like you said, if they do trade Lamar, it's going to be super interesting to see what they get for Lamar and where that positions them in the draft. How high of a first-round draft pick do they get, and do they go after a quarterback? Do they try to draft one of these? I don't know if they're going to be able to get one of those top 3 guys. I don't know if those top 5 teams are willing to move out. I mean, that would really surprise me. So that kind of leaves you, I feel like, Will Levis or
Maybe they want to like
Anthony Richardson.
They want to like kind of replicate Lamar with Richardson. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just tank. I mean, that's their only other choice. But
Caleb Williams.
this roster, it didn't seem like it was that far away from contention. It just like they took a massive step backwards this offseason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, good pick in Baltimore. I definitely agree. They had a not a very impactful and a helpful way offseason, just kind of losing a lot of guys, not replacing a lot of guys. And like Michael said, they're going to have a heck of a draft to
Even stay in contention.
Yes, and especially the AFC is just so competitive right now, and even having the Bengals in their own division and the Browns, who have showed possibly if Deshaun Watson could play quarterback again, they could be good too. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing this offseason.
So we're going to go winners now that we expressed our love for the losers. Michael, did you have a winner?
I do, and it is the Chicago Bears. And it's, I mean, I could say it's a little cheap just because they have the most money to spend, but they went out and made moves on what they needed. I mean, they went and got, so they lost Roquan Smith last year to the Ravens. You can't really replace Roquan because Roquan was like a top 3 middle linebacker, but they get Jermaine Edmonds on a 4-year. They get DJ Moore and Chase Claypool as the receivers. Obviously, Chase Claypool was last year, but then DJ Moore, they get the 9 pick. And then the 9 pick, you could have Jalen Carter fall to you in the draft or anything like that. They also got a 2024 first, a 2025 second. They got Robert Tonyan for tight end, so they'll have him and Cole. Actually, I don't know if Cole Kmet's still there.
He is.
And then they got Deontay Foreman at running back because they lost David Montgomery. So I think that they've been doing the most. They've got a lot of depth players, too. They have a lot of players they've signed for depth. So I think they've been really impressive on what they've done so far.
Yeah, to me, this offseason for the Bears was finally getting those weapons around Justin Fields. One thing I wish they would have done a little bit more, which they might be focusing on this in the draft, is get him in like actual offensive line. But yeah, the surrounding him with Deontay Foreman, who's going to be maybe your lead back. I don't know if Khalil Herbert's going to be their one or Foreman will be their one, but it'll be one of those two. Get a true number one in DJ Moore. You bring in Tonyan as your tight end too, and Travis Homer too from Seattle. Is a great receiving back out of the backfield. Yeah, I love what the Bears did. Plus replacing Roquan with Tremaine Edmonds. Might be a little bit too big of a contract, in my opinion, but it's still not bad. And TJ Edwards, people forget Tremaine Edmonds is still only 23. He came out of the draft when he was like 19 or something like that. So he's still got a ton of potential. Yeah, I do like the Bears pick as a winner. My winner, I'm going to stay within that division. I went with the Detroit Lions. Big problem for the Lions last year was secondary. Huge problem. Jeff Okudah and I can't even remember who their second starting. It was like J.J. Hughes or something like that. Don't remember who their second starting cornerback was. But anyway, aside from that, they bring in Cameron Sutton, solid cornerback from the Steelers. that's an immediate plug-and-play guy. Bringing Emmanuel Mosley from San Fran, kind of underrated in his time there because he's been overshadowed by a ton of other defensive guys in San Fran like Fred Warner and Charvarius Ward, who had a breakout season this past season. And also bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which was a huge pickup from Philly. He's going to be a plug-and-play into the slot. He has familiarity with one of the coaches. I don't really remember who it was. And I think that potentially brings them as my favorites out of the North now. And with that being said, they also bring in a division rival running back in David Montgomery. So weakening one team while improving the other. But you do lose Jamal Williams. Sure, you replace him with David Montgomery. You lose Deshaun Elliott. Sure, replace him with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Just did a great job of replacing guys that needed to be replaced.
No, I really like your winner. I think Detroit was a team that impressed a lot of people last year. I think Jared Goff impressed a lot of people last year, and all I did was help him. That defense is going to be better than it was last year, and that's was their defense was just so bad last year. And I really think they brought in some guys that were better than the guys they lost, like you said. And I mean, if the Packers do lose Aaron Rodgers, and I think the Vikings are just, I think they took a step back.
They cut a lot of guys this offseason.
Yeah, it definitely leaves that division way more wide open than it's been in a really long time. And the Lions, I think, are trying to be that team. They're trying to make the right moves. And I do think it's going to honestly come down to how good can Jared Goff play, and can their defense keep them to where their offense is having these electric games where they're putting up 30, 40 points. Their defense can hold the other team to 20-something, and they can win a game. So
I forgot to bring this up in my take. They did lose DJ Chark, so we'll see how that plays into effect. But I'm not too concerned about that because they do have Jameson Williams.
yes, and Williams looked good the last couple weeks of the season. It'll be exciting to see him for a full year. I'm really looking forward to watching that. And they still have Amon-Ra, who obviously has just been really good the last 2 seasons.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a guy in like the second or third round just to shore up that wide receiver position and not take a chance on Jameson.
All right, so for my winner, it's kind of a tough one. I did think there's a few teams left at this last spot, but I went with Dallas, and I just really like the veteran moves they made. This is a team that ran across the Niners last year, lost a really close game, definitely needed some firepower in that game they just didn't have. I think it's smart they get out from underneath that Zeke contract. They're going to be eating that cap a little bit, but you need to get out of it sooner or later. So they finally made that move. They did lose their guard in Connor McGovern, yeah. But I like that they brought back Leighton Vander Esch. I like that they brought back Donovan Wilson. And it's not really what they did in signing, it's the trades they did. I think the fact when they go ahead and, for defense, they go and get a superstar cornerback to pair with Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore, and they only had to give up a 5th-round pick for him. It'll be a question mark, I think, to see how much Stephon Gilmore has left in the tank, but he was still pretty solid for the Colts last year, so I think that's a really good pairing with Diggs. It definitely takes some pressure off of Diggs as well, to have a guy like that on the other side of the field from you. And then at receiver, everyone kept saying, why did they get rid of Amari Cooper? They needed that other electric wide receiver. This puts too much pressure on CeeDee Lamb. Well, they're taking the pressure off of him. They're going to give up a 5th and a 6th to the Texans to get Brandon Cooks, which again, it really isn't that much for a pretty superstar receiver, in my opinion. Brandon Cooks can easily get 1,000 yards for Dallas. Just kind of been rotting away in Houston, not really doing too much there, but I mean, he's been almost had 1,000 yards last year with Davis Mills as his quarterback. I think Dak Prescott's definitely a step up from Davis Mills. I like the receiving core. I like their defense, and I think this team is trying to fix some of the pieces they didn't have last year, and it'll be exciting to see what they do going forward.
For me, Dallas is, like you said, they didn't give up much for Gilmore. They didn't give much up for Cooks. My only problem with that is you don't have any potential on this team, and I don't really personally think Dallas is in win-now mode. I think they're in that in-between state. With that being said, I do like the pickups of Gilmore for this year. I do like the pickup of Cooks for this year based off the value they gave up. You lose Zeke. Don't think that's that big of a deal, personally. goal line back at this point in his career, and you lose Dalton Schultz, which, in my opinion, was the biggest problem of this offseason. Is he as explosive as Cooks? No. Do they play the same positions? No. So not too sure how that's going to work out with their tight end position. Do they go tight end in the first round? Do they take one at all? They just run it back with their 2 rookies that they had last year, in Peyton Hendershot and Jake Ferguson. Dallas, I don't really see them as winners. I don't really see them as losers. I have more of like a B grade for them this offseason. So, but like you said, the pickups of Gilmore and Cooks were pretty significant for this season and this season alone. A lot of money comes with them, but again, just for 1 year. Next year, you're going to have a lot more cap to work with, especially with cutting Zeke.
Yeah.
So I do like this move for the future.
I just think they were close last year, and I think they made some positive steps in the right direction. I think it's just going to be what kind of Dak Prescott do you get? Because I think Dak Prescott's the reason they lost to the Niners, but I also think Dak Prescott's the reason they beat the Buccaneers. He looked really good in one game and horrible the next. So
he is their make or break solution.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So we are pretty much out of time here. So we will be back next Monday at 9 o'clock. This has been the first quarter with Gage Kaler, Cade Ricketts, and Michael Bosch.